activating November's Algol eclipse, this lunar eclipse in Scorpio proves to be particularly feisty. It is finally that time where we get to discuss the lunar eclipse in Scorpio that is occurring on May 16th. This is exciting for a couple reasons, and not that the chart or the eclipse is exciting. In fact, it's kind of not. Like, it's kind of jolting. However, the thing that is exciting about this is that we have not seen an eclipse in the sign of Scorpio since 2014. Additionally, we have not seen a south node eclipse in Scorpio since 2004. So this is something that I've been interested to see, simply because we've already seen 2 eclipses in Taurus. This is the first one that we're going to see in Scorpio, as the eclipses really activate the Taurus Scorpio polarity. So let's get into it. This eclipse is going to be occurring at 25 degrees Scorpio and 17 minutes. And this is a weird one, because since the last eclipse, the world has sort of taken an interesting turn. In the days shortly before the eclipse, the solar eclipse at 10 degrees Taurus on April 30th, we learned of the leak of the plans or the intentions of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. We've also seen some egregious leaks in terms of what some of our lawmakers are also hoping to do, and it's not looking good from right about here. It's not to say that this has happened or that it 100% will, although this certainly seems to be the theme that we're working with. Eclipses make the world go a little nuts. Everything goes a little crazy during eclipse season. And eclipses are catalytic events. They stir the pot. There's something quote unquote fated about what comes about during eclipses. Usually it's when we get too sleepy or we get too comfortable as a collective, and also on a personal level. But right here, I'm talking about the collective, where the fates, the universe, however you want to reference them, they stir the pot, and it is a catalyst for us to move in a new direction. Now, I'm going to reference the work of an astrologer who is named Charles Jane. And Charles Jane did a lot of work on eclipses. In fact, did a lot of research and theorized and wrote extensively about eclipses. And one thing that Jane observed and promoted is that the events that happen in the few days before an eclipse are extra unpredictable in the way that they're going to turn out. So this is a little worrisome, especially if you watched my longer webinar on eclipses where I looked at a lot of the other charts. The one around our midterms, the one on the day of our United States midterms on November 8th, that looks worrisome to me. I'm not going to downplay it. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm trying to just say, hey, it's time that we all pay attention, because these are really big issues that affect all of us, like in such a big way. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try to like curve my Jupiter in Aries a little bit here, and just let's focus on the chart for right now. So what we're seeing is a lunar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio. The moon happens to be in its fall in the sign of Scorpio, which is considered a debility. And why is that? Because the moon deals with connection. The moon also deals with the people, the public. So at this point, in a mundane standpoint of what this eclipse is describing, is the people are pissed off. And I'm, of course, speaking to what's going on here in my country. I am aware of what's going on in the Philippines. I'm aware of what's going on in other nations around the world, too. I know that there's a lot of unrest. There's a lot of discontent right now. But the fact that this moon is in its fall and it's eclipsed makes it even more compromised of a moon. So there's something about not feeling like we're getting our needs met. The moon deals with safety. How many of us are not feeling safe right now, you know? And even like it, because these bills don't just affect women, they affect trans people, they affect gay people, they affect people who want IVF, they affect people who use contraception. I mean, like, this bill is the tip of an iceberg of so many other things that are sacred and precious to us. And so, yeah, this is a really big deal. So how many people are not feeling safe right now? On top of that, how many people aren't feel like their livelihood or their future is jeopardized by the way that our society is set up? I mean, the cost of healthcare, the cost of living, like, it's bad. And I think that this full moon lunar eclipse, sorry, it's Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, it is reflecting that for us. Now, looking at another important layer of this chart is the moon's rulership. So we're looking at Mars. And initially, when I did that extended webinar, I thought oil, because Mars is in Pisces and it is conjunct Neptune. Neptune is associated with oil. So I thought that with everything going on between Russia and Ukraine and where we're sourcing our oil, and also being in a threshold of technological innovation, we are in a Saturn Uranus square right now, the closing square. And this is a cycle that is associated with technological growth. I did a whole webinar for NCGR on that, packed with historical research and references if you want to check that out. But yeah, there's so much change. And so I saw that as maybe a way that we could sort of shift away from dependency on other nations for oil and sort of just do our own thing. And with Scorpio being a sign associated with resources, perhaps it still has something to do with that. But now I'm thinking pharmaceuticals. Neptune represents pharmaceuticals, and Mars is conjunct Neptune, ruling this eclipse. So yeah, looking at plan B, looking at contraceptives, IUDs, all of those things that we use Neptune and pharmaceuticals for, and even just expanding that lens even just creatively a little bit further to the whole medical industry. And that's where we're seeing a lot of discourse right now, is medical professionals talking about like how they're just going to provide care, and also the notion that someone could be jailed or under criminal charges for saving somebody's life. Like, for example, an ectopic pregnancy where someone's admitted to the ER. We're having this really intense, really complex, although it shouldn't be that complex. We should all have the right to health care, in my opinion. But this really intense discourse is going on right now. And Scorpio is a sign that is willing to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly, And this is really important that we talk about. And it's actually really inspiring to me and just affirming to see these stories being shared from people who have miscarried and been questioned in Texas, seeing the stories of medical professionals who have recounted how they've saved people's lives who were having a medical emergency based on a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy, or people even talking about pregnancy and how crazy it is on the body. I mean, I've only had my one child, and yeah, like, all I can say about that, just from a personal level, is being a mom is so much work. The amount of change and stress that birthing and nursing and carrying a child is, like, all I can say about that is I wouldn't wish that upon anyone who doesn't choose to go through it, because it's you're building a relationship with someone. Like, this is someone's life. This isn't just like a job that you hate, right? Like, this is someone's life. And everything I do is keeping that conscientiousness of, how does this affect my daughter? And and I'm probably still going to fuck her up, and that's just the way it goes. But You know, that's a whole other conversation. But the thing is that um it's a tall order becoming a parent. And I think that people should only have to do that if they choose and if they're up for the challenge and if they want to, because it is a lot of work. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But yeah, I think that this full moon is just reflecting a lot of that important discourse where, going back to it a little bit, this is stuff a lot of people don't talk about enough, like I didn't hear the stories about labor and delivery and pregnancy until I became pregnant. And it was almost like an initiation. Like everyone then starts telling you all the things you didn't know before, all the fun things like ruptures and your abs ripping apart and um yeah, just all the fun things nobody tells you. And also something else that's been sort of becoming more like supported in the collective is sharing stories of miscarriage or sharing stories of abortion and sharing these stories, because previously there's been like a lot of shame about it. And I think it's the fact that not enough people talk about it, that there's so much ignorance in the collective about it. Like the fact that lawmakers want to ban abortion at 6 weeks just shows that there's no understanding of how that works, because it's usually not until you're 6 weeks pregnant that you find out that you're pregnant. So there's just a lot of ignorance, and I think that it's important and it's powerful that more people share their stories about this sort of thing, about pregnancy, about choosing your having the right to medical freedom, having the right to make these decisions for your body. We're also seeing some reversals in Alabama, where without the patient or the parent's consent, that doctors are going to start reversing transition for teens who are undergoing transition, for trans teens who are undergoing transition. And yeah, I mean that's not okay. Like you're entitled to your opinions on that, but like doctors making that decision for someone else without the parents' consent, like that's not okay. And so everything going on right now with medical freedom, like this isn't just women, as I said, like this is trans people, this is gay people, this is something that affects everyone. So some other things that we might see with this is, okay, so Mars is in Pisces. So Mars in Pisces, as I predicted in my Mars in Pisces video, I predicted that we might see some more mass protests. The last time we saw Mars in Pisces, we saw the Black Lives Matter protests really reach a crescendo. Again, it was also eclipse season, so that may have had something to do with it as well. But that was a time when a lot of people left their homes. We were all quarantined, and a lot of people left their homes to come together for a compassionate, just cause, to stand against the systemic oppression and violence against people of color. And I predicted that maybe we would see that again with Mars in Pisces. And we are seeing that. We're seeing protests, we're seeing mass demonstrations, we're seeing people come together because Mars in Pisces is the peaceful warrior. So what is it about this Neptune, though? I think Neptune is also going to add this layer of confusion or overwhelm. And Neptune also makes us sort of spiral out of control. And so I think we've heard these whispers of politicians saying, oh yeah, well, I'd like to ban condoms too. And we've heard crazy things said like that, and a lot of people are clutching their condoms and stuff like that. And I'd like to hope that that's too crazy, that is sort of that Neptunian hype and feeling overwhelmed by everything else that's going on, that our mind spirals there too. I'd like to hope that. But who knows? I mean, Neptune does sort of have this quality of removing boundaries. And I think of Mars ruling this eclipse and how Mars likes to take things away. And I think that there's just this lack of boundary on behalf of some of these lawmakers where they don't really understand where their beliefs end. And you know what I mean? Like, where's the boundary between what your personal belief is and what is best for the collective? So yeah, I think Neptune there has a little bit of boundary issue that we're going to be experiencing from both angles of the spectrum. But yeah, I think we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this plays out. But the other important layer to this eclipse that's really worth mentioning is the fact that Saturn is squaring the eclipse. And Saturn does deal with limits. Saturn deals with rules, tells us what we can and can't have. Saturn will set the boundary. Saturn will like crystallize it, basically. So I'm wondering if we'll see some sort of decision, like what is going to happen. I'm wondering if Saturn will have some say on that. Saturn has a tendency to say no, so that does tend to worry me, but it also makes things very, very clear. I'm also thinking a lot about Saturn and infrastructure. I'm thinking a lot about rules and regulations. And yeah, I'm also thinking about consequences. This is our first eclipse with Jupiter in Aries. And I know Jupiter isn't technically ruling or aspecting anything here. However, it is on the world axis point, and it is angular in the eclipse chart for the United States. So yeah, like major court decisions. And I know that's another thing that we're hearing a lot of discourse about, is that a lot of these Supreme Court justices who were recently sworn in, they swore to uphold Roe v. Wade based on precedent. And so could there be consequences for that? Could there be consequences for that from, for example, like the Senate toward, because they were all confirmed by the Senate. So yeah, there's a lot of senators feeling a certain type of way about it. So we'll see. Could there be some sort of consequence from that? And Saturn, of course, rules consequences in general. So everything going on in Russia, what kind of consequences will we see there? Again, going back to the resources angle. And yeah, there's a lot of like shifting of alliances going on in Europe right now. And I think that has a lot to do with Saturn in Aquarius as well. So that's a little bit about what we can expect for the eclipse. I, of course, could continue to speculate, but I think now is a good time to stop. So with that said, this is your Lunar Eclipse in Scorpio astrology shot of the day. And I hope it serves you on a personal level in the highest. This is a very hot degree. And if you have this degree in your chart, chances are you have a lot going on. If you'd like to do a one-on-one and get a little bit more support in deciphering that and weighing out everything that's going on in your world, I'm always available for one-on-one consultations where you can find on my website. But for now, that is your astrology shot of the day, and I will catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. For more astrology in your world, connect with me on all platforms at Astro Catherine. You can also visit me at my website where you can get on my mailing list and stay up to date on all the current offerings and classes that are going on. Till then, thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you. Bye.